Welcome back, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast, episode 65. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sir Gator Productions.
And it is daylight savings time.
Again.
Literally the morning of. So this episode's going to be an hour short. So I give it a 3 out of 5.
Oh, nice. Okay. I give it a 2 thumbs up.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Good day and good night, mates.
Yeah. As you guys can tell, we're a little out of it this morning. Yeah. We usually record on Sundays. So literally it's the day of. So no real adjustment. I kind of apologize if I sound tired or a little out of it this morning.
No, it's no worries.
But I am very excited today. This is going to be quite a special episode, at least for me. And believe it or not, there's not really much movie news this week. So
surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll kind of just jump right into it.
So what do we got for today, Nabahi?
So I made the recommendation of, this is kind of the first time outside of the guest episodes that I've done this. This is actually a TV show, not a movie. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this show, I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, is I see this show's influence and stamp still held 60, 70 years later, you know? Mm-hmm. This show came out in the 60s. And it had quite a long run. And this show is very much just a time capsule of its time, but some of these stories and things hold relevance to today, which is kind of shocking. Now, the show I recommended is called The Twilight Zone. It is a very popular show that has had, so many amazing episodes, not to mention reboots that happened in the 80s, 2000s, 2020s, so there's been quite a few reboots and different iterations. The one we're going to be talking about today is episodes from the original run that happened in the 60s. And it is a show created by a man named Rod Serling. He also plays the narrator in each episode, kind of the guy who walks into frame or something and kind of breaks down the story that you're seeing. Now, this is an important show for me. So as I've mentioned before, there was a time period in my life where my family didn't have access to like cable or anything. So I was kind of restricted to just public TV. Yeah. And then obviously renting movies. Used to go to a video rental store a lot. However, when we moved to a different state, our income was kind of raised a little bit, due to my parents getting better jobs. And we were finally able to afford cable. And I was about, middle school at the time. And one night I remember, it's kind of funny. It happened on the same night. My brother was like, hey, you should stay up with me and watch these TV shows. And I was like, okay, cool. Because at that point I was kind of just into like, the Nickelodeon shows, SpongeBob, stuff like that.
Nice.
And my brother's like, I have these shows that I really think you should watch. One of them was Seinfeld.
Okay.
And the other was this show called The Twilight Zone. And
that's a crazy jarring.
I know.
Shows.
I hadn't seen them or watched them. So this was kind of like a big moment. Now, when we first watched The Twilight Zone, he kind of told me what this series was. It was this anthology series where each episode is its own story. It has its own setup, its own resolution, and each week they kind of do a different, story and everything, which sounded really cool. And I remember watching this show for the first time, and just immediately I was just grasped onto these ideas. And it's so funny. They're only 20-something minutes long. Yet the ideas are enough to attach to your mind and everything to where your attention span is just fully there. And not only that, your mind kind of wanders with the ideas it puts into your head of like, wait, okay, that's very interesting. And you start thinking about a lot of different stuff. So immediately I fell in love with this show. And every night after that, we would watch different episodes on the Sci-Fi Channel. And then it's kind of funny. On New Year's and 4th of July, they would do 24-hour marathons of this show. Dang. And I would sit there, honestly, for most of those holidays and just watch this show. It kind of became like an obsession and everything. But man, this show is just amazing, and it's crazy. You know, I watch movies and things, and I see, nods. I see, interviews of directors and stuff. They talk about this show and the importance that it had.
Yeah.
So Wallied, obviously I've talked to you about Twilight Zone before. I know I've mentioned it to you probably quite a bit. If you guys know me at all, man, you've definitely heard me talk about the show. And it's kind of funny. Sometimes me and my friends, we go to like a brewery, and sometimes the bartender will like put it on, no words, like there's no audio.
Wow.
And all my friends are talking, and I'm literally sitting there just dialed into this show, even though there's no audio. So it's kind of like an obsession. But anyways, Wallied, have you heard of this show? Besides me, have you seen any of the episodes?
Yes, so I have heard of this show before. I guess I'll talk a little bit about my experience with this show. So I heard about this show around, I think the same time. I think like middle or high school. Nice. I think I was scrolling on Netflix one day and I saw the title of it and I was like, that looks cool. Yeah. And I think it was like one night on a weekend or something. I just put on the first episode, which was the episode where like, the whole town is gone basically. It's very eerie, very like kind of disturbing, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I loved just the mysterious intrigue of everything going on. And then that was kind of it. I think I had only saw one episode and then for some reason, I just never got around to watching it. But then it's a show I've heard about for such a long time and everything. Aside from you, a lot of people have recommended it to me. There's actually somebody I knew in college who was like obsessed with this show and everything. Yeah. And so, so now kind of watching these 3 episodes that you recommended, I got to say, it's crazy. This is from like the late 50s, early 60s, because honestly, we'll get into it obviously, but there's a certain episode where I'm like, this could have came out today and I would have believed you, honestly. But it's just absolutely fantastic. And I'm kind of kicking myself in the foot for not really checking this show out sooner, honestly. There's just so much great mystery and intrigue. Even with the 3 episodes, I'm like, I can't even guess where these episodes are going. Like sometimes I have an idea, but then it just like throws like 5 different twists and turns at you. And I'm like, how are they doing this? Honestly. Yeah. That
is one thing with this show. Each episode kind of has its own kind of like twist, I would say, where, the plot is leading one way and then it kind of just flips it on its head. So for the sake of discussion, we will be talking about each episode kind of in full detail. So if you haven't seen this show, please check it out. Obviously have my recommendations of kind of this whole episode is like my top 3 favorite as of right now, which can kind of change and everything. So if you haven't watched it, please, man, I really can't recommend it enough. If you can find some way, I'm pretty sure it's on streaming somewhere. So just please try to find a way to check out this show. If you haven't watched it already. There are so many great episodes. So this was kind of one of those challenging moments of, I want someone to experience this show, which in this case is Wallied, and also you guys, the viewers. How do I pick episodes that I think can best represent this show? And I guess I kind of just centered on these 3. And also, again, these are like my personal favorites. Mm-hmm. But again, this show isn't a big commitment. Each episode is its own story. You don't have to watch season after season after season to get to anything good. You can literally just put on one episode. If it piques your interest, cool, watch another one. You'll have a whole different narrative,
Yeah, that's the insane thing. Because each episode, like you said, is like 25 minutes. But I'm like, I could literally watch like a whole movie with this, honestly.
That's the great thing with the show. So we're going to start out, I guess, number 3, my third favorite episode is an episode called The Hitch-Hiker. It focuses on a character. She is on a cross-country road trip from New York to Los Angeles. And she had an incident happen with her car. I guess one of the tires went out or something. And the episode opens with her getting her car repaired. And she kind of mentions to the repairman and everything, about her whole trip and everything and kind of the journey that she's on. at the repair shop, she spots this hitchhiker kind of standing off to the side. She doesn't really pay much attention to it. She just kind of notices him. And she, eventually gets her car repaired and everything. And she's back on her journey. Across this whole span of a couple days, no matter where she goes, occasionally she will see this same guy hitchhiking in different locations wherever she happens to be going. And it gets to the point where this whole trip starts to turn into like this psychological kind of messed up horror game of like,
paranoia.
Yeah, paranoia, feeling like you're being stalked, the feeling like you can't escape. And it's kind of funny because it has tones of like isolation, and she's just in a car, and that's scary, I mean, anytime I've been on a road trip or anything, there is like an isolating feeling to it, Sometimes it is very kind of peaceful and everything, but there's kind of a scary thought of I'm out here by myself, all these other cars are driving by, but if something were to happen, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
And the episode plays to that a lot. Now, it's crazy the way this episode unfolds. It's based off of, I think, a radio play that they used to have. And you can kind of feel hints of that with the character narrating over the whole story.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I feel like aids to this story quite a bit. Kind of like Wallied mentioned with that first episode where a guy is in a town and no one else is there. The guy's kind of talking out loud to himself, which can be kind of clunky, and for this episode with this character by themselves, I like how a lot of the dialogue is internal. It's her thinking, wait, I just saw this hitchhiker. How is he in the next place that I've been to? That doesn't make any sense, And it just slowly starts to just turn into like this eerie feeling. Yeah, I remember when I first watched this episode, like I was just like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? Like, that's kind of freaky. And it's so funny because the hitchhiker doesn't really do anything. He
doesn't really talk all that
He doesn't
much.
talk. He just will stare at the woman, hold his hand out. And she's absolutely terrified by him, which rightfully so. I mean, you're going across country and you keep running into this same person. It's like, wait, what's happening? So Wallied, with the opening premise and everything, I'm assuming you watched this one first, right?
I actually did watch this one first.
So what's kind of going through your head when you're seeing this hitchhiker and everything, like this whole narrative? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I had no idea. I guess with the hitchhiker, I was guessing it was maybe some like stalker or like past ex or something like that.
Nice.
That was kind of the only thing I could really think of like kind of why he kept showing up at all these places, or maybe he was like a ghost or something, which I guess it was somewhat close because like everybody else can't see the hitchhiker except her. But right away, it really just kind of sucked me into that kind of eerie kind of feeling like somebody's watching you, and it's kind of freaky at certain points, honestly. Like, I think the moment that probably got to me the most was like that train sequence.
Oh yeah.
I was like, damn lady, like just get out of your car at that point.
I really like how this episode is kind of filmed. Like, I really feel like they put a camera in like a car and they were just driving.
They just kept rolling with it, honestly.
Nothing really feels like, well, there are parts that do feel like they're kind of on probably like a stage or something, but a lot of like the daytime shots and everything of the car, there's actual backgrounds, it feels like they're on location, same thing with like, she goes through like this tunnel, and I think because I like this episode, the way it's filmed a lot, and it feels unstable, which I think at the time, seeing my brain watching, kind of like we mentioned with Rashomon, the camera being unstable, but it's in black and white.
Oh yeah.
Is like kind of a jarring feeling, of like modern filmmaking, yet it's done way back in the day. It is like your mind like, wait a minute, whoa, this is weird, because normally when I see black and white, it's stable, the camera is literally like planted to the ground, just simple panning, stuff like that. it wasn't until much later where the cameras, kind of became handheld and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely kind of timeless for sure, surprisingly.
So watching this episode, there's a lot of elements of that, of like, wait a minute, whoa, this looks modern, yet, it's in the 60s,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of great moments in this episode, like Wallied mentioned with this train. Like she pulls up to where there's trains crossing, and immediately across the road, she sees the hitchhiker standing there.
Yeah. I thought maybe the hitchhiker did something to her car or something, honestly, like maybe late at night or something. That's what was going through my head with that.
Nice.
And then, just because I was like, okay, wait.
Yeah.
Like, what an odd coincidence. She's right there in the middle of this train and everything. And then for me, it's like, it put me in this terrifying feeling of like, just with like this train coming and everything, and her trying to like start the car as quickly as she can. It's like, oh man, I felt the anxiety of that.
No, really though. And there's a lot of effective moments like that where she's in her car and she's in a situation where this hitchhiker is present and she can't really do much. Like at one point she approaches like a road and it's blocked off, and like a guy tells her you have to wait. All of a sudden, the hitchhiker's on the side of the road, walks up to her car, and she immediately just freaks out, and then she drives off road, which is terrifying. And also, one of the great moments that I love is like the rationale behind trying to break down what's going on. She has this moment where she's in a diner. She's kind of plotting out where she's going. Which is crazy. I mean, she has like a map. It's so crazy to think that like you had to plan like like a map or something.
I know,
that's
right?
Crazy. But yeah, she's planning where she's going, and the guy who works at this diner is like talking to her, and she's trying to break down. She literally is like asking him like, "Hey, would it be possible if there was a guy hitchhiking to get picked up and beat me across the country, town to town, like if I was going slower than that car, And it's just like, I like that moment because it really is like the rationale is trying to break her out of, what's going on. She's trying to like save her own mind as to be like, no, this can't be it. There has to be some logical reason as to why I keep seeing this guy.
Right, yeah.
Which in the case is just like, come on, like there's no way, like
there's no just a way to make sense of it at that point.
And that adds to like the scariness of it, and I maybe it's like the horror fan in me kind of likes the rationale behind that. I like it when stories have, at least somewhat of like a logical, trying to find like a logical reason, Yeah. And the story starts to unfold more and more. She ends up picking up like a passenger, this guy who's like a Navy guy.
That whole interaction was kind of hilarious. Though, honestly. He's all, hey, we need some gas.
And the guy's like, okay, so she goes to this gas station and it's closed. It's late at night. So she knocks on the window. And immediately, literally 5 seconds, the guy opens his window. He's like, what are you doing out here this late at night? And he's like, that's not enough to wake a man in the middle of his sleep. I'm like, you were already up. You're wearing like this bathrobe and everything. She knocks on the window. 5 seconds later, you open it. I'm like, you're already awake. He doesn't even look like he just woke up. Sorry.
No, it is funny though. But that was one of the other moments that really got to me too, because it's like she's in the middle of nowhere. There's this gas station. Her car is dead too also, and I'm like, oh my god, what is gonna happen? Hopefully this gas clerk isn't some like crazy person. That's kind of what I was expecting, honestly. And so I kind of thought I was hilarious when they subverted it, and it's like, actually no, the guy's just a grump.
I honestly like how like Wallied mentioned, like your mind kind of wanders with this stuff of like when her car breaks down, it's like, is he gonna be there? Is he gonna like chase? So, your mind's just thinking of like, wait, where is this guy? Where is he? It's just like freaking you out. But she picks up this veteran guy who's also going to LA, San Francisco. And she wants some type of companion for the rest of the way because she's basically losing her mind. So she offers to take this guy the rest of the way. And they have a dialogue exchange and everything, but slowly she starts to see the hitchhiker again, and it's starting to play with her mind. and she's asking the guy, like, did you see him? And the guy's like, I didn't see anyone. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then she sees him again, and she's kind of at the breaking point. She's had enough, and she tries to run the hitchhiker over.
That was crazy too. I was like, dang. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
she wants to break out of, this kind of mental prison that she's in. Obviously, I don't know. She tells the Navy guy, I try to run him over. The guy's like, all right, well, I've had enough of this. So he wants to leave. So he pulls over and he ends up leaving.
I was like, dang, I didn't expect he was going to leave, honestly.
And then we get to this point of her on the verge of a breakdown. She needs some type of solidarity, so she calls her mom just to hear like a voice or something to just remind her that, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And she calls her mom, and this lady picks up. Nan Adams is like freaking out, like, wait, who are you? Like, did I dial the right number? And she's like, yeah, your mom, so-and-so, whatever, is in the hospital. She had a nervous breakdown. And daughter's like, wait, what are you talking about, a nervous breakdown?
Yeah.
And it's explained to her that over the past couple of days, her mom has been, not having the greatest time accepting, that her daughter died a couple of days ago in a car crash because her tire went out. And all of a sudden you see the expression on Nan of just like, wait, what? What do you mean the death of her daughter? And it was I remember watching this for the first time. I was like, wait a minute, what? She's dead? And then you almost see like a moment of like confusion, but also she explains it like she felt a sense of like calm. She wasn't afraid anymore,
Yeah, it's like this weight's been lifted off her shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when she mentioned the nervous breakdown, I was like, okay, is it maybe like a family thing? Like maybe that's something that like, like with the hereditary type of thing where it's just like, oh yeah, these like certain like types of disorders or like types of breakdowns that just kind of get passed on to the children.
Yeah.
I will say though, with this twist, I sat there for like 10 minutes in silence after watching this episode. I was just like, what?
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, it's hard to put into words, but it really just like kind of screwed with my mind in a lot of different ways. And I was just like, the tire thing was it was almost kind of like a dream of sorts, honestly.
Yeah,
She's in this kind of weird dream state between, real life and like the afterlife or something, at least would be my guess.
And the episode ends, she goes back in her car and she's almost kind of thinking of like, I know I have an idea of who this hitchhiker guy was and everything. And then she pulls down the mirror and the hitchhiker's in the back of the car and he's like, I believe you're going my way. And then the episode ends.
Crazy. I was like, that was like another like, wait, what WTF moment of like, wait, okay, this hitchhiker's here to pick her up.
Yeah.
It's the other way around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, what? Okay.
Which was crazy. So yeah, this hitchhiker this whole time was like, the personification of the Grim Reaper, death, he was there to collect her soul.
Speaking
and everything.
of death.
Which was crazy. And it's funny when you rewatch this episode, they kind of hint at it a lot in the beginning. Like the mechanic working on a car is like, wait, you were going how fast when your tire gave out? He's like, and you're still here? Like that's crazy. And then she also references at the beginning, like, he mentions the price of the repairs and she's like, well, it's cheaper than a funeral, right? And I'm like, oh, damn. It's funny when you rewatch it.
Yeah, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Crazy.
That's yeah.
But yeah, overall, this is just a great episode.
Fantastic episode.
It has just a lot of great eeriness to it. It's a simple premise. I mean, you explain that to anyone. Like, what if you were driving across country and you kept seeing a guy hitchhiking in each town that you went to, the same person,
right?
Like that kind of already intrigues you. And also it kind of gets under your skin of like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds weird. But yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes. I remember first watching this, man, like I was terrified. I was like, this guy's freaking me out. He's like smiling and stuff.
There's like a moment where he like jumps out of nowhere in the screen, and it literally like scared like the hell out of it. Scared the life out of me, and I was like, "What the heck?" He just pops out of nowhere, and you just see like a big extreme close-up shot of like his face.
I swear, and he's like looking through the camera, like at
it's
you.
like he's looking at you.
So it's crazy. It's a really good episode, and like I mentioned with the narration and everything, this really could play out as like a radio play. Like this,
honestly, I really loved the narration a lot in this episode. It is Rod Serling also, right? With this, or is it another person?
The narration, the screenplay the teleplay was written by Rod Serling. So he actually went to see this, or he listened to this radio play when he was like in high school or college or something.
Okay.
And it was kind of one of those stories that always stuck with him. In the original teleplay, or the original radio play, it was originally a man, the main character, and it was read by Orson Welles on the radio.
Yeah, Citizen Kane himself.
So this story always kind of stuck with him, and it was one of those moments of like, you're adapting a story that you really love, and he did switch up the gender of the main role, which I think honestly works probably a little bit better. You know?
I think so too, honestly, especially, I mean, it's kind of crazy again, like late 50s, you know, like this was a kind of uncommon, you know?
Exactly. But yeah, overall great episode. If you're watching the Twilight Zone for the first time, man, this is a great one to start with. It sets up everything in a very great way, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
There are a lot of different episodes, some that play, as we'll talk about the show, some play more into like kind of this aspect of like a thriller horror type scenario. Some are a bit more, existential fantasy. So yeah, this show has a lot of great moments. All right, so we jump to the next one.
What's our next one?
This one's this one's important for me. This was one that I always really loved. This was one that at one point for the longest time, this was like my favorite episode. This one's called The Howling Man. And basically the setup of this one is it kind of opens with like this guy talking to you in like the camera. Little do we find out later, like who he's actually talking to. His name is David Ellington, and he is this guy basically lost in like a storm, and he seeks shelter. And he stumbles upon like this castle during a storm. He's like in Europe or something. And he basically is taken in, but the people there don't really want him there. They're very adamant that needs to leave, you know? And he's basically become sick throughout the storm and everything. And he's just seeking shelter. So that way, once the storm's gone, he can find his way. And in this kind of place that they're in is called the Hermitage. There are these people there with like these robes and stuff, really long hair,
long beards,
staffs, you know? Yeah. They look very strange. It's almost like he stumbled into like this kind of cult thing.
Yeah. They're all herding sheep.
And while he's there, he can hear this sound of this like howling, and he doesn't know what it is.
I honestly thought it was a werewolf.
And over the course of the episode, he finds out what is causing this howling, and he finds out who these people are, and he finds out that he's stumbled upon something that is actually very big, and kind of holds weight to it, you know. And he is kind of being played to two different sides, you know, and he ends up making a decision that is not good for humanity and everything.
Which I was not expecting that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So this episode is important for me because this was one of the first ones, one of the earlier ones that I remember watching. And I just thought this was just such like a good idea for like a story, you know, like this whole idea of like this person playing, being deceitful towards you, trying to trick you, you know, trying to get you to bend to their will and everything. Very probably earlier on in the episode, these people who are at this hermitage, this guy named Brother Jerome, who's like their leader and everything, explains that this guy howling in this cell is actually the devil, and he's trying to get him to free him. And he's playing to something that he thinks Mr. Ellington will eventually feel pity on and be like, all right, I'll let you out of here.
Yep.
And it's such a weird thing. Like, honestly, this episode does feel very strange. It has a lot of like Dutch camera angles and everything, a lot of heavy shadows and things. But man, this episode is just, on paper, story-wise, just one of my favorites. I always like it in stories, and the Twilight Zone has a few episodes like this where they have personifications of the devil,
Yeah.
And it is very freaky. It's very strange. Anytime
Yeah.
in movies or anything when they're like, yeah, that's the devil, that's Satan. And it's just like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, I know.
And it's crazy. The angle they take on with this episode is when they show this guy, he doesn't look, devilish. He looks like just a normal
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way the actor plays him is done very well. You kind of do feel pity for him. He explains like this whole story of him with his, wife or whatever. And
yeah,
he was like with her at a park or something, and he kisses her, and then these guys come up and take him. And he's like, is it wrong to kiss? That's what he asked Mr. Ellington. And you do feel pity.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like what?
It was funny. I put this funny picture in my head. I'm just imagining all these guys just coming to get him, and they just carry him to the castle.
Yeah. But yeah, it's quite the episode. Wallied, with the premise and everything, what were you thinking when this was kind of set up? I know this is a pretty big jump when you go from something like the Hitch-Hiker to this.
Well, it's funny because I saw this episode right after the Hitch-Hiker.
Yeah.
So it was just so jarring.
Very jarring.
I was like, oh, okay, this is more like fantasy-like. This is more like a rivalry between good and evil sort of thing.
Exactly.
But right away, I was honestly like, there's no way this is true. These guys have to be lying. This is some kind of like cult, like sacrifice ritual type of thing, was at least what was going through my head at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then just as it like goes along, I really started to question. I'm like, are they telling the truth, or is this poor or quote unquote this poor innocent guy, is he actually telling the truth? And then I think on top of it too, like there's like just this stick that's like holding the cell down,
and he can very easily reach
pick it up, which I think is even more absurd and kind of hilarious when I think about it. But I will say though, this is probably my favorite use of Dutch angles I've seen.
It's really great,
honestly, because when I think of Dutch angles, unfortunately, my mind goes to Battlefield Earth because they use it. They spam it in that film. So it's nice to see Dutch angles used correctly. And I don't know. For me, it put me in that like state of uneasiness every time they used Dutch angles throughout. And I thought it did a fantastic job with that.
It really does. And there's great performances all around. Like these guys really sell you on, they're these larger than life figures, like we mentioned with the devil, with Brother Jerome. You really do feel like, all right, wow, these actors did such a great job, pulling off this story. And I'll say the actor for Mr. Ellington does a good job of being that neutral side. He doesn't know who's telling the truth. He's here by accident. He's also very sick from the storm. He probably might even think this isn't even real.
Well, even at the beginning too, he has this like sort of fourth wall break where he's all, let me tell you this story about everything that happened. I'm like, and I didn't even realize it until like the ending. Obviously we'll get into that part, but I was like, oh, okay. That was a really cool full circle moment. Yeah,
it really is. And I like the background that Brother Jerome explains of, no, they're like, we captured him. Like this guy was released. The last time he was freed was like at the beginning of the First World War, and he caused all this havoc and everything. And we were finally able to get him again, and I kind of like that idea of like, he explains like humanity causes a lot of its own problems. We do, and yet the devil can almost aid in that. He's not just the full reason as to what's going on. you know, humanity does a lot of that itself, you know, them killing each other and everything.
Starting wars, wreaking havoc.
The devil can very much just simply just kind of start that and just kind of let humanity do its thing. He doesn't need to be there the whole time. And I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty interesting.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of take on good and evil. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And Mr. Ellington has a lot of these questions of, you know, wait a minute, like if this is the devil, like why does humanity suffer so much? You guys have him captured right now. Yet there's all these things going on. And I kind of like this whole breakdown, you know, of this religion and everything. I just find it very fascinating. But throughout the episode, he has conversations with both sides and he doesn't know what to think. He hears this howling and everything. He can't explain it. It's like this guy wailing out for help, but it sounds like a wolf. The sound design of it too is kind of freaky because whenever I hear it and then you see the guy, I'm like, that's weird.
Well, it's funny because the brother Jerome is like, we have to hear this every hour. I'm like, God, that sounds awful.
5 years.
I'm like, God, that sounds terrible.
That sounds awful. I mean, I lose my mind when fire alarms chirping in the background. Let alone some person howling. And then they get into this whole kind of reveal. Basically, Mr. Ellington doesn't believe Jerome and everything, you know.
Rightfully so, because I mean, they give some kind of hints to us, like, there seems to be much more going on.
Exactly. Yeah. So he decides, you know what, I'm gonna free this guy. So when they go to the place where he's sleeping and everything, he wakes up in the middle of the night. Goes to the cell and everything, and it's kind of funny. His morals and everything start to fall apart because he goes to the cell and he's like, "Wait a minute, like this is all that's holding you in?" Because the guy, the Howling Man's like, lift that staff up, and he's like, can't you do it yourself? It's within reach. And the guy's like, just hurry, you know, in the name of mercy, just lift it up.
Yeah, it's that whole impulsiveness. And it's like, oh, no.
Yeah. So in the moment, you know, Mr. Ellington does it, lifts it up, and the guy is freed, and he turns into the devil.
And then the way he almost like crippled too from it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He like sends him to the ground and everything.
Yeah. He's like levitating.
Yeah. It's insane. And there's a great shot, which kind of blows my mind as to how they did it. There's this shot after the Howling Man is freed. He turns and has like this look on his face of like, he just did it. He fooled this guy. Almost like a mischievous kind of smile and everything. It was very freaky. And you see almost like his face start to change appearances right in the same shot in the middle of your eyes, right in front of your eyes. And literally how they did it is they put different colored makeup on the actor's face, and then they would light the scene. You can't tell, it's in black and white. Yeah. But they would do like red makeup, light the scene in red, so that way it would look normal. All of a sudden you change that to like a blue light or a green light, the makeup would then start to kind of show in the camera. You would start to see it because it's opposing to the color that they chose. So literally in one shot, you see this guy's face kind of change, and it starts to look darker and scarier. In like one shot. And every time I see that, man, it just makes my skin crawl. I'm like, oh, that's freaky.
Yeah, his transformation was just
such a great effect.
Wow. Yeah. No, I didn't know that, honestly. I was like, how did they pull that off? Considering it's like a moving shot too. Yeah. And he's going through like, you know, as he's walking through the pillars, he keeps changing. I was like, whoa. Yeah. What?
And he changes into this basically full on, you know, anytime you hear the name of the devil, that's
the devil.
Yeah. It's very, it's objectively him, which is a little over the top. But I think in terms of the show, they kind of wanted to leave you with a definitive stamp of like, no, that guy was, you know, because the whole story, you're kind of going on both sides.
Is it not? No, it is.
So yeah, they wanted to very clearly spell out, yeah, that was him. And it's a very freaky shot and everything. And he just disappears and he's freed. Yeah. And yeah, Mr. Ellington has, you know, this moment of like, I saw him, but I didn't recognize him.
Brother Jerome's all, oh, you released him.
Yeah.
Now you got to go find him.
And Jerome very clearly states, Jerome says, that's man's weakness.
Yeah.
And Satan's strength, which is great. That is such a great line. And then we jump back to where he was in the beginning. He's talking, when he was talking to this camera, he was actually talking to this the maid who works for him.
What's funny is he keeps him in the house in this room, and it's like a little
staff of truth, and he has him locked in there. No window this time, so all she hears is this howling and everything.
Yeah.
And he's explaining to her that's you can't release him. Like, I have to go, but I have to go kind of seek preparations to transfer him back to where he was.
Yeah. I took the ending as like it's this cycle that just keeps repeating over and over again. Somebody will release him, and then they'll try to capture him, and then they'll release him again, And
it's funny because he kind of explains to the maid, like, throughout this whole time he's been trying to find him, there have been multiple different wars and everything, all these things going on.
Yep.
And he's tried his whole life to find him, and he's finally been able to do it.
I would love to know how he found him, honestly. I'm like, I kind of picture in my head, he just found him at like some random place. It was all, oh, I got you. Come on over.
And it's like for me, like a great premise to like a story of like, almost like a religious order finding the devil, and it's almost like this whole battle that's going on underneath the surface of what humanity is experiencing. That's such a great idea, of there's justification as to everything that you see going on. And it's a very simple thing going on underneath the surface. It's the battle between good and evil, and you don't see it yet. It is happening, it's happening in the background and everything. I think that's great.
And
then she lifts the cane, and obviously the door opens and the story ends,
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, and then this was, I think, the other time where the narrator, he pops up for like a little bit, and then he's kind of gone too, which reminded me of another show I love called A Series of Unfortunate Events, where Patrick Warburton, he plays Lemony Snicket, and every once in a while he'll just like show up in camera and like narrate what's going on.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder, honestly, if they got inspiration from this show, because I was like, that's really cool to see if that's where they're pulling from.
I didn't even think of that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of the few episodes actually that's written not by Rod Serling, the teleplay. This was written by a guy named Charles Beaumont. And he had this whole book of short stories and everything, and The Howling Man was one of his stories. And in the original book and everything, it was left a bit more subtle. So I kind of like this whole idea. In the story, Mr. Ellington lets this guy go, the Howling Man, and as he's walking away, he falls to the ground. And Mr. Ellington, as the Howling Man's walking past him, he grabs onto his foot. And when he grabs onto his foot, the only thing that's there is like a hoof, and he escapes, and that was it. So there was no real like transformation into this full devil. But like I mentioned, with them adapting this thing, they very clearly had to state, all right, well, a hoof is really cool and that's freaky, but we got to state that this is very obviously
the devil.
Yeah.
And it's a great transformation. It's still great. Too, so no complaints.
But overall, this is just one of my favorite stories. And honestly, this is one of those moments where I was watching a movie and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before.
Oh, dang.
Ex Machina very clearly takes a lot of inspiration from this story.
Really?
Spoilers for Ex Machina. He meets an AI, and this whole time this AI is playing with him, trying to get him to free him, basically. It's like this whole love story or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end, the AI escapes, and it's almost like he let loose this, devil onto the world.
Yeah, wow, that's right. Yeah. Wow, I didn't think about that.
And now that I'm pretty sure I've heard in interviews and stuff,
Alex Garland's mentioned that.
He very stated, like that was the inspiration behind.
Oh, wow.
So props to Rod Serling and Charles Beaumont. Man, this episode's amazing.
Cool. Wow, I didn't know that was this episode. That's insane.
Yeah. And it was so funny because that was my favorite episode at the time, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. But yeah.
You're having deja vu. All right, what's the last episode?
All right, last one. This one's strange. So this one I had seen earlier on, being in middle school and everything. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favorite. It was just one of those episodes that I enjoyed and everything, but I kind of just left it at that. Now watching it, now that I'm getting older and everything, this episode is just very powerful in its statement. It's very powerful in the story that it gets across. This episode is called The Obsolete Man, and it stars a very well-known actor named Burgess Meredith. If you guys don't know, if you've watched the old Adam West Batman TV show, he plays the Penguin in that show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he's a very popular actor, and actually he's in quite a few Twilight Zone episodes, and it's so funny. He has a different role in each one. Some he's just super crazy, some he's super timid and everything. In this one, man, he's just doing so well, just eating up the dialogue and everything. So basically the setup for this episode is this is kind of in an alternate reality, basically based in our reality, but kind of in the future of the time that we've kind of set up for ourselves. And it features a librarian named Romney Wordsworth, played by Burgess Meredith. He is opposed to this totalitarian government called the state, and they have basically outlawed all books and everything. And Mr. Wordsworth, coincidentally, is a librarian. So since the outlawing of books and everything, we find this guy, a librarian, he is now deemed obsolete. And for the state to deem someone obsolete basically means we have no use for you, so we're going to kill you, which is crazy. Again, like this episode.
Very scary.
And it's very different from the other two episodes that I recommend. Again, this show is just so expansive. Yeah. It's crazy.
Also jarring, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the state deemed him obsolete, and he is basically now in the last 48 hours of his life. And they're going to set up his execution and everything. And you get such a great back and forth of challenging ideals between someone representing the state, this chancellor guy, played by Fritz Weaver, who was also in another one of my favorite episodes. He plays this chancellor in just such an over-the-top way. Obviously, it's very meant to mimic, just totalitarianism, government, fascism and all that stuff.
His performance is terrifying.
It really
honestly,
is.
Yeah.
And again, it's like these opposing ideals. You have this guy who, thinks that, or who believes that his life is worth more than it is,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a state government society that basically says, no, it isn't, and in that, the dialogue exchange that they have in this, courtroom and everything is just amazing. Like the dialogue is just so good.
I honestly thought that was going to be just the whole episode. Like it was a bottle type of episode. Just like this, they just have this back and forth, kind of courtroom drama type of thing.
Yeah. It really is great. And I love the set of this whole courtroom. It's like this almost like German expressionism, shadows,
very 1984 George Orwellian type of thing.
Crazy tall, like the doors, man. This guy walks into this courtroom. These doors are just so tall. Yeah. This guy is standing on this podium that's like insanely high off the ground. Shadows just casted everywhere, and you have these people standing off to the sides who are like judging him. And he has a super long table, and this guy sitting at the end of it almost is like an echo of this chancellor and everything. It is a little over the top, but I think it's strange to say that because it's like as over the top as it is, it still feels believable, Yeah. What if there was a state and everything and government that basically would deem its citizens, obsolete and unworthy of life, Yeah. That's a scary idea and a scary thought.
Very.
Yeah, Wallied, what were you thinking with the setup of this episode? Again, this is just totally different than the last two. I mean, I remember watching this as a kid. I didn't fully understand. Well, I say that, but I was like in middle school.
Yeah.
But watching this, like, it's just like, it's so different. And it's funny because there are so many other popular episodes that hopefully one day we'll get to talk about them.
Yeah, for sure.
That are just maybe a bit more iconic, a bit more playful. But to watch something like this and to see the ideals kind of challenge the audience member, what were you thinking with all of this?
It just blew my mind, honestly. Yeah. I knew right away, like when it began, I knew this was going to be something a lot more disturbing. Okay. I think I would describe it as this term. It's dystopian.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think of dystopian, I think of this. This is like just wow. Yeah. Like it's just like you said, like everything from like the sets to like even just the argument that the librarian and this chancellor are having is just so incredible. It's so just for me, it just kind of leaves me in this just sense of awe, this sense of terror, like that this could possibly be a future, like if we take away people's freedom of speech, if we take away, certain kind of freedoms, like this is something that could possibly happen, and that's, to me, is just such a scary thought to have, honestly.
In this story, in the beginning courtroom, the chancellor references that the state, that this government has proven that there is no God. And in that they deemed pastors and all that stuff obsolete. They're all gone,
which is also just like what?
Yeah,
that's insane.
And then the librarian starts to challenge that. He says, you can't erase God with an edict. Here you are, just simply stating, and then obviously the chancellor kind of loves that this guy is challenging him because he almost feels like he's proven that there is no God,
Yeah.
And then pretty much it kind of shows that this librarian has been hiding his whole religion this whole time. Later on in the episode, we see that he still has a Bible that, was deemed illegal and this, yet he's kept it hidden for so long. And we kind of get these opposing ideals of one person thinking that they control everything. They're the defining force behind everything, and the people under them who oppose them, Granted, it's just this one librarian, but he believes in
the embodiment of that, of like a rebel.
Yeah. And I love it in stories when they have that, is like Wallied said, the embodiment of these ideals challenging each other, And there's no like crazy challenge or anything, but you get to see it play out in just such a fascinating way. Like I mentioned with the dialogue, it's just showcased so well. Like the back and forth these guys have is just so thought provoking.
Yeah.
It's so bare bone, you really do feel like if this were to exist in some way, you're just watching just the small amount of it. But in that small amount, it can explain so much. Like there are two sets throughout this whole episode, the courtroom and
the librarian's
house. And that's it. Yet my mind is thinking, what's going on outside of this?
What does this future look like? Well, even when he mentions like, oh, there's like, we're going to display your execution for everybody. I'm like, are they going to go to like a park or something? Honestly.
Crazy.
Or even, I think that's what really disturbed me too with this episode, is even like when he mentions, he's like, okay, well, you can choose your execution however you want, gas, electric. And it's like, God, that's not even something I ever want to imagine.
Yeah. And it's crazy. So they play out in this way. Mr. Wordsworth is able to select his own execution. And in it, he has just a few requests. He simply wants, his execution to be shown, which the state obviously loves. That he kind of relishes in the fact, he says they committed like 1,600 executions in the span of a couple hours. And they in this society, they have to prove to the people living in it that, if you defy the state, it's very punishable,
Yeah.
Which
sends chills down my spine.
Which is terrifying.
Okay.
So he wants his execution to be shown. He wants to have it only known to him how it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
they kind of delegate like this person to, talk with Mr. Wordsworth about, they use the term, his liquidation. And only he's going to know how it's going to happen. So it's scheduled to happen within 48 hours. It has to happen
At midnight.
later than that. So midnight is when it's scheduled. And he's simply sitting in his home, kind of counting his hours, before his death and everything. Then all of a sudden he is requested a visit from the chancellor to show up at his house. And in that visit, Mr. Wordsworth locks him in there.
If I didn't think the episode could get more insane, by the way.
Yeah. And it's funny. They don't make a big show of it, but when I watch it, you very clearly see him lock the door and put a key in his pocket once he enters the room.
Yeah.
And he tells the chancellor, my terms of execution I've chosen is that a bomb was placed in my house, and it's set to go off at midnight. All of a sudden the chancellor is showing this whole big show, this is exactly what we want. He's kind of explaining where their thought process is.
Yeah.
At one point he references Hitler and Stalin, and he basically says that,
Which he's basically that, let's be honest. Yeah.
And he says that they had the right idea, although they didn't go far enough. So it kind of explains to you what this whole state is all about and everything. And it's done in a great way. Obviously, just a couple lines of dialogue. They have to kind of explain so much.
But they do such a fantastic job of explaining so much with so little, which I really love.
And once he's found out, the chancellor, that he's locked in this room, now we get to see the battle of these ideals and how it's going to take place.
Yep.
One man is convinced and knows that there is a God and fully believes in that, and that obviously there is an afterlife, this and this, and he has no fear, He's a man of faith and everything. We have another man who was very adamant that God doesn't exist.
And that he's a power of himself.
That, there is no afterlife. And as their death is approaching, what's going to happen, which is just so fascinating. And I love this whole kind of montage and everything of like the clock ticking down.
That was
Mr. Wordsworth.
Yeah, that was great.
Reading the Bible, reading the book of Psalms and everything.
It left me with a lot of dread and tension, especially when they were showing that clock throughout that whole part. That was just, oh my gosh.
Crazy. And it's funny. Mr. Wordsworth challenges his whole ideas of like, because the chancellor basically is trying to get let out. He's basically like, oh, guards, is there anyone there? And he's like, no, you set up the terms that I was to be isolated. There's no one here. And not only that, your ideals state that the government thinks that, you guys are the absolute, and in that they wouldn't mind seeing you die for their purpose, almost like you're expendable to them. And in that, here I am challenging your ideals and everything. Why would they let you go? That would basically prove that I'm right, And I like that whole back and forth. And the guy basically realizes by his own ideals that he's basically screwed, and he has to then die for the state. He has to basically die to send a message to everyone that, the state isn't afraid of people like Mr. Wordsworth, and that is just, it's absolutely amazing.
It took me a bit to piece two and two together, especially near the end of like, oh, wow, this guy's a coward, quote unquote. I'm like, oh, Lordy. Okay.
Exactly. And it's just amazing. So as the clock gets closer and everything, it's approaching midnight. You see
he gives out this yell
start
that really
crack.
As he's reading these like Bible verses.
And it's amazing. And I love Burgess Meredith's delivery on all these lines and everything. There's a calmness to him, there's just a faith to him, he
has a sense of composure. Definitely.
He knows what's going to happen, yet he's not afraid of it.
It's almost just inevitable at that point. Which is, oh God.
So as we get closer to midnight, the chancellor is, breaking down. He basically pleads in the name of God, will you please let me out?
Yeah, which is crazy. I did not think that was going to happen, considering how they portray him in the beginning and everything.
Exactly. And Mr. Wordsworth is like, yes, in the name of God, I will let you out. So he opens the door, he leaves, and Mr. Wordsworth just stands there, and he accepts pretty much, he knows what's going to happen. And the bomb blows up and everything.
I didn't actually think that bomb was going to go off. I thought he was bluffing throughout that whole episode, because I was like, no, because again, he's a librarian. He's read a lot of books, so he probably knows how to like kind of use a sense of like manipulation and sense of maybe like having a step up from the chancellor was what I thought they were kind of going for.
That's an interesting take.
So when it blew up and everything, I was like, oh, dang, he was not bluffing.
Yeah.
He actually blew himself up just to get his point across.
Yeah. And the chancellor escapes barely, and he goes back to his job.
A much darker full circle moment. Yeah.
And he walks into the courtroom, and now he's being judged, and they have stated that he is obsolete because
he was a coward and he didn't die with him.
He acknowledged that there was a God. He was a coward. He didn't fulfill the state's purpose. So therefore he's obsolete.
It was crazy. Yeah, again, very dystopian.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
God.
And it's crazy because obviously the title of the episode is The Obsolete Man, and it's so funny. It's like, I think it's a double meaning. Obviously, it refers to Mr. Wordsworth and everything, but at the end of the episode, it's referring to this different person, this chancellor.
Yeah, this person who is like at a higher power now is just a nobody, Exactly. And now he just gets replaced like a robot or something. Yeah.
And it's done in a very, very eerie way. Like these people surround him in this courtroom.
Yeah, reminded me of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
Exactly.
With Squidward.
And they let out this wailing sound, which is like really freaky.
Are they robots?
Yeah.
God.
It's like this subtle like wailing that just gets louder and louder, and
they turn into killing machines, I guess.
And they chase him and they grab him, and I'm assuming they just rip him apart or something. Like obviously I think
they pull him on this table, he like slides on the table.
Which is insane. And it's funny enough, the director, I guess, took that wailing sound from like a nightmare he had of like, in it he saw someone getting killed and the people killing him we're letting out this wailing sound, and the whole idea was to like capture that sound in this death and everything. That is very nightmarish. God. Wow. Which kind of describes the show in a great way, obviously. Hopefully it is like a nightmare, like this place doesn't exist and everything.
I would say this episode is probably the most nightmare out of the three I watched.
So Wallied, obviously this is a different episode than the other two, but overall, what were your thoughts with it? I mean, it is a very much, challenging type of episode,
I mean, like I said, it's just incredible like the other two, but in a kind of different way of like, it feels, I think this is for me, that this was probably the episode I was most terrified with. Definitely just the most dystopian out of the three. And it just like paints this kind of head of like a more like bleak, pessimistic kind of future that you just never want to see. And then, the back and forth banter is just incredible, and it's like, I like seeing like two opposing sides, and you see their dynamic play out throughout the episode, that was just something. And then obviously the whole like the librarian and the chancellor being just stuck in this room together, and there's a bomb and he can't leave basically, and they're recording the whole thing was just such a eerie, terrifying thing to think of, and I loved just seeing just how just the chancellor pretty much break down to just basically becoming a human again, not becoming this like higher power type of person. That really just kind of blew my mind. And then the whole full circle moment was just like even more of like a WTF moment of like, oh, wow. Okay. I was not thinking that's what you were going to go for with that. It was fantastic. Like it's an episode I've been thinking about nonstop since I saw it.
In some of the episodes, quite a few of them, Rod Serling will appear at the end or have like a closing narration kind of encompassing the episode. And I just wanted to kind of go over that narration because I just love it so much, the way this episode ends. Obviously, it's with the Chancellor being kind of ripped apart. The narration starts. It says the Chancellor, the late Chancellor, was only partly correct. He was obsolete, but so is the state, the entity that he worshipped. Any state or entity becomes obsolete when it stockpiles the wrong weapons, when it corrupts nations but not minds, and convinces nobody when it dons armor and calls it faith. Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of humanity, that state is obsolete. Which is just fascinating. Great way to end the episode.
It definitely gave me an existential feeling for sure after Rod Serling said all that.
Yeah. And it's just like, this guy has this whole thought and everything, and he writes this episode and just how timeless it is. Like that message and everything just speaks so loudly.
Yeah. I think that's kind of also is like what I meant of like, you could have told me this came out today and I would have believed you.
Exactly.
Honestly.
And here we are like 60 years later and it's just like, wow, this just even still feels relevant.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
But. And one of the nice things that I heard with this episode is people really had quite a reaction to this episode.
I could imagine it's visceral, honestly.
Yeah, people would write in saying they either loved it, they hated it, this and this. He caught some flack for it. He also got a lot of praise for it from people. Mm-hmm. And in catching a lot of flack for it, he kind of had this whole statement that he came out with, basically kind of stating his thoughts on the episode. And I just wanted to share it. He said, the Obsolete Man had a very simple premise. It was simply that you cannot destroy truth by destroying the printed word. You cannot undignify man by destroying him. You cannot wipe away a belief in God by an edict. And sooner or later, every dictatorship must of necessity fall, because sooner or later, thinking people of courage will overthrow it. And coming from a guy who served in, the world wars and everything. He was, actually fought in these wars and everything. Mm-hmm. Had firsthand experience of seeing dictatorship in its worst form, says a lot. And for him to write this story, base it around those ideals and everything, is amazing, and to kind of regulate it so smallly to just a simple librarian arguing his own purpose against a state that thinks it's absolute is just amazing. And like I mentioned, with the back and forth dialogue between these two, it is so entertaining. And it's just so thought provoking. The way these two challenge each other with their ideals and everything. It's just something that is crazy to think. For how long I've been talking about it, this is like a 20-minute episode. I
know. Yeah, that's what's insane. And they get so much across than like most things usually do. Yeah. And that's what I guess I also mean too, of like, man, I could see a whole movie of this, honestly. This is such a great idea. So yeah, if you haven't seen any of these episodes, please watch them, man. Like this episode alone proves that, this inspired so many things, it's so timeless in its execution and everything. Even when I watch it, I'm just like, just mind blown that, wow, this was like early 60s. Yeah. Basically 1961 when this came out. Still though, that's insane.
That is absolutely insane. So yeah, overall, like this is just a show that I love, and as great as these 3 episodes are, there's so many other great ones. There's so many great stories in this.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch more, honestly. I honestly want to watch more episodes now after us talking about this.
It was really hard to pick 3. I mean, there are so many other ones that I love, like Eye of the Beholder is so good. That's such a great message. Number 12 Looks Just Like You is another great one. The episode Living Doll is so good. There's so many great episodes to this show that I just really love. One for the Angels is one of my favorites too. Wow. Yeah, there's just so many great stories. And it's just crazy to think that like this show did it so well and so right at the time that every kind of new iteration that has come out really just pales in comparison.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wow. And I think that it's all due to one thing. Like this guy, Rod Serling, had an idea, you know, and he was able to get other directors, writers on board to help convey all these different stories, you know, which is just amazing. And it's just a testament to the time period that they were in. So amazing. So yeah, I would love to talk about more episodes of the show. Hopefully more in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I would totally be down to do that more because after just these 3 episodes, I'm like, I want to watch this whole show now. Yeah,
it really is so amazing. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I mean, this was, I know it was different than our usual episodes that we do.
Yeah.
Kind of stick to movies and stuff. But I felt like for this, in terms of shows, it being an anthology series is a little bit easier to kind of condense a little bit.
Exactly. And I guess for me too is like, I had no idea what I was in for considering it's anthology. I was like, I might like this one more, but honestly, I loved all of these. Like they were all just fantastic. There was not one that I thought was like, oh, that was okay. Or that one was good. You know, like they were all just really fantastic in their own different, unique ways. Like they felt like little short films. Yeah, honestly.
Exactly.
So it kind of ties into it a little bit.
Yeah. And like I mentioned, this series has inspired so many different movies and things.
I could imagine, honestly. I mean, like you mentioned with the Ex Machina one, like I didn't even know that. That's insane.
Or there's an episode that Jordan Peele took inspiration from for his movie Us.
Oh, wow.
Dealing with like doppelgangers and stuff. That episode's kind of freaky.
Oh, cool. Nice.
There's a lot of great stuff in here. So yeah, definitely if you haven't checked it out, please check it out and let us know what you guys think. I mean, this is such a great show and it's worth talking about, at least in my opinion.
Honestly, this was such a great experience. This is a great way to get into the show too. A lot more also. I mean, man, the twists and turns these 3 episodes took, I could not have told you that's what they were going to be doing. And that's a great testament to a like great show too. And I love a lot of the concepts and I love how much they take full advantage of them in these very short amount of time, you know, honestly. They do so much. I get, it's crazy how quickly invested I got into everything.
And to have those big ideas and to have those challenging, you know, thoughts and everything, and to put them, like you mentioned, in 20-minute episodes, it's like, here we are, we're making hour-long TV shows now, and sometimes we can't even get across the most basic storytelling, you know? Yet here this show was, it can convince me of this whole dystopian future
in like 20 minutes. I'm like, God dang.
Or in the simple opening of a show, it's like 5 minutes and I'm already like, oh, okay, I'm on board for this.
Oh yeah. I love that theme opening, by the way, too. Yeah. And the narration makes it even better also.
It does. Yeah. So really I'm just super happy that this show is still has relevance today and it still, you know, is inspiring young people. And it's just amazing to think that, you know, you can have kind of like in the story of the Obsolete Man, you know, you can have a thought and everything, and that thought will still hold true even after your death. Which I think in the case of Rod Serling is a great message. Obviously, he's no longer with us, yet his impact is still felt today.
Yeah. That's great. And that's timeless. So
it's amazing. All right. What do we got for us next time, Wallied?
All right. Let's see how I follow that. I think I got one.
Nice.
All right. Well, seeing as we talked about Toy Story 5 in one of the last discussions, or not last discussion, but during the movie news, I thought, you know what? Let's talk about one of these Toy Story films. Let's dive into it, honestly. I'm thinking we do Toy Story 2 next episode.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is probably my take, but this is probably my favorite Pixar sequel. This is the one I've come back to the most, I would say. Between it's hard because they're all great.
They're all great.
Aside from 4, but it's a tie between like the first and second for me, but nice. I think I solidified that 2 is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
And it has been a little bit since I've seen it, but I thought let's touch on it, honestly.
That's great. No, yeah. I think Toy Story 2 is such a fascinating story and everything. And like I kind of mentioned with, sequels nowadays, it's just like we did something so right, however long ago it was, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like now we're struggling so much to do sequels in such a great way, and
which is a little surprising too, also. But
and then also the fact, we'll obviously get into it, but the fact that they undersold this movie, this was supposed to be a straight to DVD release.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they had to fight for it to actually get pushed into theaters and everything. And I'm just like, wow, that is just fascinating. And was it this movie where they like deleted the whole?
That was this movie, and the one of the employees had it on their drive at their house. That's
insane. Yeah, we'll have to talk about all that.
Yeah,
but yeah, this is a great movie.
Yeah, and I thought too, especially since we did our Cars 2 discussion last year, I was like, let's do a sequel that's actually great from Pixar.
I mentioned that in our review as like one that should have been pushed to DVD and the other one that should have been pushed to theaters.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
I know, that's kind of hilarious. And seeing as Toy Story 5 is coming out later this year, I thought, let's do a Toy Story film.
That's kind of
cool. For
our
next discussion. So,
awesome.
Yeah, if you guys haven't seen Toy Story 2, I'd be shocked if you haven't. Give it a watch next episode.
Definitely.
This is quite the movie, honestly. And this has probably my favorite Toy Story character in it, which I'll touch on during the discussion. So, yeah.
That's great.
Cool. Fun Twilight Zone recommendation.
Yeah.
We're in that in between now.
Yeah.
We made it. We're in that in between life and the afterlife.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good day, good night, mates.
See you on the next one.